Task 1 introductions are really simple to write. They're actually the simplest introductions you can write in IELTS. There's a simple formula that you can follow in any question type. It should take you 1 to 2 minutes max to write high quality, concise introductions. Let's go through some misconceptions now. So the first one is including opinions or explanations. So this is not task 2. This is something that you might need for task 2, but in task 1 it's not necessary at all. You do not need to give your opinion or explanations in any part of task 1. The second one is including background information about the topic. Now, if the topic area is something that you are very familiar with, it might be tempting to write some background information, especially if you don't feel confident in writing 150 words. But really don't bother doing that, because it's a waste of your words and a waste of your time. It's not required whatsoever in task 1. So now let's have a look at the formula to writing high quality, concise introductions. So it's basically made up of 4 steps. Step 1 is to paraphrase the opening. Step 2, paraphrase the main topic. Step 3, paraphrase the time period. And the last one is to paraphrase the location or age. So what you're aiming for is basically, as you're climbing these steps, you need to get to the top, which is where you paraphrase the whole question. So let's practice. So here's that chart that we had earlier, and here's the question that you have. So the charts below give information about how many tourists visited the UK between 1984 to 1998 and their nationalities. So that's the bit that you're going to paraphrase. You do not need to paraphrase this. In fact, you don't have to write this bit. This is the question that you need to paraphrase. So step 1 is to paraphrase the openings, and the opening is the charts below give information about. That's the opening. The second step is to paraphrase the main topic, and the main topic is how many tourists visited and their nationalities. Time period between 1984 to 1998, and the location is the UK. So let's look at step 1, which is to paraphrase the opening. As I said before, this is the opening of this question. So what you're going to do is you can paraphrase the charts below into either these charts, or into this chart or this graph. The verb in this case they've used is give, so you can paraphrase it with any of these other verbs instead. And then information can be paraphrased with data, can be paraphrased with an overview or figures. So you can decide which verb to use. You can use any verb, to be honest, and then you've basically paraphrased the opening. So this is what I've changed it to. These charts reveal data on. So that's what I've decided to use. Information can also be paraphrased in other ways. Sometimes the question might have spending on there, so you can change it to expenditure. It might have rate, you can change it to percentage or level, ratio, proportion, share, portion. So remember, it's all about being aware of what's available to you. As long as you know that, then it's really easy to paraphrase almost anything. So let's move on to step 2, which is to paraphrase the main topic. And the main topic in this case is how many tourists visited the UK. So to paraphrase how many depends on whether it's countable or uncountable. So in this case it's countable, so you can use the number of instead. If it's uncountable, you can decide on one of these. So just to recap what countable nouns are. So basically these are nouns that you can add an S, ES or IES to in its plural form. So tourists in this case is countable. Uncountable is where you cannot add anything whatsoever, and examples include information, equipment, advice, and education. So there are also some irregular nouns, as you already know, I'm sure. So like child becomes children, person becomes people, and when it comes to irregular nouns, we use countable. We consider them as countable nouns. So you would use how many and the number of. So let's move on to paraphrase in the next bit, which is tourists visited. So tourists visited can be paraphrased in different ways. So one is by looking at synonyms. The second one is to change the form of the word. The third is to change from active to passive. And the fourth one is to combine sentences using conjunctions or relative pronouns. So let's have a look at synonyms. So tourists can be changed to visitors, holiday makers, or travelers. Visited can be went, came, or arrived. Nationalities, ethnic group, origin, citizenship, country of residence. In terms of changing the form of the word, so tourists can be changed to its noun form, which is tourism, and visited can be changed also to its noun form, which is visit. In this case, you cannot change it to the passive voice, but in some examples we'll be looking at later on, you'll be able to see that and practice too. The fourth step is to combine sentences using conjunctions or relative pronouns. In this case, I've decided to use the relative pronoun who, so then it becomes these charts reveal data on the number of holiday makers who came to. So let's go to the third and the fourth step now, which is to paraphrase the time period and the location. So the location is the UK, and it can be paraphrased to Britain, or you can use the adjective, which is British, or the United Kingdom. Time period, in this case they used between, so you can change it to from 1984 to 1998. If it was one particular year only, then you can say in the year 2011 or in the year 1990. And if it's 2 years, you can say in years 2010 and 2020, or in years 1990 and 1998. If it's what you can also do is you can paraphrase, so you can literally just work out how many years it is and then say over a period of 14 years or over a 14-year period. So these are different ways you can paraphrase the time. So let's have a look at the complete introduction now. These charts reveal data on the number of holiday makers who came to Britain over a period of 14 years and their country of residence. So as you can see, this paraphrased introduction is completely different to the question, and that's what you should be aiming for. Let's practice now. As they say, practice makes perfect. So you have these different questions. I want you to go to page 19 and have a go at paraphrasing these introductions for me. So let's go through the answers. The first one was the table below shows the monthly expenditure of an average Austrian family in 1991 and 2001. So there are two ways you can paraphrase this. The first one is to say the table presents an overview of the monthly spending of a typical household in Austria in the years 1991 and 2001. Or you can say the table presents an overview of the amount of money that typical households in Austria spent monthly in the years 1991 and 2001. So both of them are good and they're both paraphrased, but this one has the relative pronoun that, so you have a complex sentence over here compared to this one. Let's have a look at the second one. The graph below shows the demand for electricity in England during the week in winter and summer. The pie chart shows how electricity is used in an average English home. So in this question, you've got two different graphs or charts. So you can paraphrase it in two different ways. The first one is where you can put both of them together. You can join them together and say the graph depicts data on how much electricity was used in England over 7 days in 2 seasons and how this was consumed in a typical English household. You can also write in a different way using the conjunction whilst. So whilst the graph depicts data on how much electricity was used in England over 7 days in 2 seasons, comma, the pie chart illustrates how this was consumed in a typical English household. And the last one, the graph below shows the different modes of transport used to travel to and from work in one European city in 2000. So this graph displays data on the different kinds of transportation utilized by people who work in a particular city in Europe in the year 2000. So I've basically changed used. I've changed used to utilized, and I've changed different kinds, different modes to different kinds of transportation. So that's one way you can paraphrase this question. And the last one is the diagram below gives an illustration of how the Eiffel Tower in Paris is going to be extended underground by 2030. This diagram reveals plans on the development of an underground extension to the Eiffel Tower to be completed by 2030. So I hope this gives you a good understanding of how to paraphrase introductions, and remember you should spend 1 to 2 minutes maximum, and as long as you master those 4 steps you should be able to paraphrase any kind of question.